All right, this is Steve from GCC, and we all know him if you're on Club, Junior Pac. He's probably the youngest member, and it's good to see the new generation still playing the games and enjoying the games, and you'll see with his passion of what he's done with this machine, how exciting it is. So, take it away.
All right.
Yeah, why don't you just start?
Okay.
Just go.
Okay, so I'd like to begin this presentation with a little, what better way? So in 8th grade, last year, we had an assignment to write to someone we admire. A bunch of people wrote to President Obama, someone wrote to Beyonce, and someone wrote to Mao Zedong. And I wrote to Steve Golson. So I never sent the letter because I wasn't exactly sure where to send it, so why not present it now?
Thank you. All right, I'll answer.
So I'll just read a brief, shortened version of the note. It works. Okay, so my name is Brendon Parker, a student with a huge fascination for restoration and continual preservation of vintage arcade machines. One of the games, from the former General Computer Corporation, has heavily intrigued me from the start, Crazy Otto. I maintain a growing collection of 11 dedicated original arcade machines from the late 1970s through 80s, including this Pac-Man. Through the years, it has been an ambitious dream to build and own a functioning Crazy Otto cabinet. For years now, I've had serious intentions and plans to convert a former Pac-Man Mini to a Crazy Otto, even if it were from 1981 through 1982. Welcome. All right, so who am I? Well, my name is Brendon Parker, but probably most of you know me as Junior Pac. I just graduated 8th grade, and I'm continuing on to my first year in high school. But what brought me here? I have a passion for classic games. Collecting them, restoring them, bringing them back as if they were today. So what got me into these? Everyone my age, from the beginning, were playing video games like Call of Duty and Halo. Okay, at this point I was 8 years old and people were playing that. Rated M games. So I'm thinking, these games, they're not quite what I want to see in a game. In a game, I want to see something that focuses not on the wow factor and that doesn't promote violence and negative morals. So I basically hated video games for my youth. I became known as the kid who hates them. I was outcast. But then I had a revelation. Hey, wait a minute. There's a game called Pac-Man. That's clean. There's no violence. It's fun. It's easy to learn and difficult to master. And it happened to be right around that time, Google was having their Pac-Man doodle for the 30th anniversary of Pac-Man. So that was my exposure. So a new chapter of my life begins. And I discover the classics. Pac-Man, Galaga, Nappy, Centipede, all those. Well, not all of them are so clean. So I basically began trying to glean every single bit of information I could from every single source about these classic games. So, inspiration. There are rumors that the Crazy Otto ROMs are going to be coming to MAME in 2010. It didn't happen. We'll come back to that. So in my searches, I find a message board called AtariAge. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a community of people who like classic games. Okay, so I join as Junior Pac, that's my nickname. At that point I was 10, it was early 2011. You could imagine that a 10-year-old and a community of 40-year-olds, I wasn't taken very well. People didn't like me. I couldn't log on without anxiety taking over. Naturally, I totally understand. I was 10, so I did what any other kid would do. I posted and posted and posted about ridiculous topics. Heck, one of my topics was, what 2600 games should I bring on vacation? So, people didn't like me, naturally. And one day, I tried logging in. Error. You are not allowed to access this. Okay, let me access my messages. Error. You're not allowed to access this. I tried to log out. Same thing. So, it's still a mystery what happened to AtariAge, at least my membership on AtariAge. But what I can assume is that one of the moderators wasn't very happy with me and tried to get rid of me quietly and cleanly and disabled my access to everything without banning me. So I basically take a break from forums. I'm still 10 at this point. But my attention shifts to the real deal of classic games, arcade machines. At that point, I was just into 2600 and such. So at that point, a full arcade machine seemed overkill. So my dad and I had planned to build a 70% scale Junior Pac-Man cabinet. We would have built it out of some scrap wood from furniture, IKEA, I don't know. So it started out well. It seemed like a perfect idea. I was a kid, and it was going to be a small cabinet. But the problem was, we had no experience in building an arcade game. So the monitor didn't fit, we couldn't put a back door, the sides were not even even. It didn't work out. So from that point, I did gain something helpful. Because at that point, we were working on this cabinet, and I knew I wanted to have a cabinet that looked like it was a real cabinet. So naturally, I wanted to put some artwork on it. I was calling around at 10 some art houses to see if they could design artwork for this cabinet. And they were saying, oh, yeah, it would have to be something totally custom. It'll be like $50. So I bring it up to my dad. He's like, $50? That's ridiculous. I'm not paying that. So from there, they say, well, if you don't want to have us do it, well, you can design it yourself, whatever. So I learned design from there. Some photos, can't really see it, but I would drag my parents around to places, for example, that had arcade machines, working arcade machines. Most of the time they were 16 ones, but in the photo there, that's the project. We used a hack PSOC board that was able to wire the joysticks to the corresponding name keys. So then, in early 2012, I find Claw. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. So I think, hey, Claw, that's another chance to start anew. It's a clean canvas, all new people, and it's about arcade games, what I'm more interested in. So I joined. I tried to keep cool and act mature, act like I'm an adult, still under the name Junior Pac, which wasn't probably the best idea, but I still was a kid. I posted excessively, and I wasn't received well there either. I pretended to know a lot more than I did. I made restoration threads for cabinets I didn't have yet. So the first 6 months of Claw were rough, mainly because I didn't have a cabinet yet. So people were thinking, I considered myself a part of the community before I had my own cabinet. And some people didn't like that. So then finally, on a Craigslist search, we find a Miss Pac-Man. So my parents wanted something that was reasonably priced, whether it worked or not, because I'd end up paying it back in the end, of course. So we find a Miss Pac-Man on Craigslist. It's not working, but it's $100. That's pretty good. So the problem was I didn't know how far, I was in the wrong section of Craigslist. I didn't know how far it was. It was like way down south. Regardless, we still made a vacation trip out of it and picked up the game. So that was a milestone. In the corner there, that's my father working on fixing the game. It actually was just a fuse.
Holder. It's
Of
a
course,
fuse holder.
that was before I knew how to fix my own games. Cut me some slack.
Do this, see if it still works. Maybe it won't even power on now.
This first second it works.
There it is.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. So from there, the collection grew and grew. The garage turned into an arcade. And that's where it is today with 11 games. Sorry, it doesn't show so well. Steve Golson.
Yeah, okay. Hi there. Oh yeah, let me take this.
So now Steve will give some history on Crazy Otto.
This will be quick. Sometimes I do this in like 90 minutes, I'm going to do it in about 5. So the story of Crazy Otto starts 1978 at MIT, where I was a student, and with 2 guys, Doug McRae and Kevin Curran, who lived in the same dorm I lived in. That was the photo of it. And they long story, cut short, they started a partnership, the two of them, having video games, pinball games and video games at the MIT dormitories. And they started in the dorm we lived in, and that was successful, and they expanded into adjacent dorms, and still students at this time. And some of your favorites you can see. So this was a kind of a fun sideline to them as being students. One thing that was popular back then were what were called speed-up kits. You could get a speed-up kit for Asteroids or Galaxian or Pac-Man, and it would, if you were an arcade owner, you'd plug it in, and it would speed up Asteroids so that those pesky little kids wouldn't play for hours on a quarter. Galaxians, more attackers and faster and whatnot. Well, Doug and Kevin had 3 Missile Command games, real popular at MIT. Nuclear war, explosions, it's great. Great way to relax after doing problem sets. But there were no speed-up kits for Missile Command. They called around all the people. Anybody have one? No, we're thinking about it. And then finally they realized, hey, we go to MIT. I bet we could make one. So, March of 1981, Doug and Kevin start this company, General Computer Corporation, because we couldn't think of a better name, General Computer. And we start, here's Super Missile Attack in one slide. So we start working on this enhancement kit called Super Missile Attack. We started at spring break, and by the time May came around, we'd all dropped out of MIT. It was much more fun designing games. Went into production in May, end of May, early June. In July, we got sued for $15 million by Atari. And by October, Atari realized the error of their ways, and they dropped their suit, and they hired us to do development work for them, which was really cool. So that's an even better reason to drop out from MIT. So that's the quick Super Missile Attack story. There might be one out on Play. I looked around, I didn't see one of the missile commands that had been converted, but you can find Super Missile Attack. And that's the 6 of us who worked on it. That summer, in addition to getting sued, we kept working on an enhancement kit, our next enhancement kit, for Pac-Man. Pac-Man had just come out, it was going gangbusters, great, we'll get a kit done, and we worked from June to October of 1981. In October, we gave a demo to Midway, and they said, wow, that's really cool, we'll buy it from them. So October was a great month for us, dropouts. It was awesome, because now we're doing work for the top 2 video game manufacturers in the country, right, Atari and Midway. And so we signed a deal with Midway for our kit, for our Crazy Otto kit. Well, now we don't have to call it Crazy Otto anymore, because now we're working with Midway, so we could call it Pac something. So originally it was going to be Super Pac-Man. And then, let's use the female character as the main character, Miss Pac-Man, Pac-Woman, eventually Ms. Pac-Man was the final name. Well, so who cares about Crazy Otto, right? It was just a previous code name for this kit. Why would anyone 30 plus years later care or even know about Crazy Otto? And that's the 7 of us who worked on it. Here's why. Because in January of 1982, Time Magazine did a wonderful, huge story about video games. Right? What's it say? Gronk, Flash, Zap, video games are blitzing the world. 1982. All right? It's a wonderful, there's a whole bunch of stories in there. It's great. If you want to, you need to get a copy of this and read it. And so here's the front of the main story. And we, of course, originally, we see the Missile Command in the upper photo there, and start, can we tell? Is it a Super Missile Attack? So we're looking at it carefully. No, we can't tell. And all of a sudden, we look down at the bottom there, and oh my gosh, it's Crazy Otto. So there were 96,000 Pac-Man cabinets in the US. 3 of them had been converted to Crazy Otto and were out on test. And that's the one the photographer picked to take the photo. And it says, right there, it says, Pac-Man scuttles about the maze eating dots. Well, I can imagine a photographer, because you've got this whole, this is in Chicago, big arcade in Chicago. You've got this whole row of Pac-Man cabinets with those ugly blue mazes that are hard to photograph. And then on the end, there's this really cool maze that's nice and pink. Oh, I'll take a picture of that one. Boom, takes a picture. And here it is in Time magazine. So for 30 years, it was sort of this, what's the deal with Pac-Man with legs? Right, and so it was this mysterious thing that there was photographic evidence of, but nobody knew anything about it. And as Brendon said, in 2010 or so, the 20th anniversary came around, and I pulled out my ROMs and my floppy disk and said, oh, I guess people care about this. And so we revived Crazy Otto, and we talked about it at the 2012 California Extreme here and have given some talks since then. So that's why people care about Crazy Otto, is because it was in Time magazine. And now we're back to Brendon.
So thank you, Steve. Okay. So back to this. Back to inspiration. So there were rumors, again, of Crazy Otto's ROMs coming to me. Of course, it never happened, or else I wouldn't have gone through the trouble of making this project. But naturally, I'm interested in things like not just what comes out and what's released. I like knowing what went on behind the scenes. So Crazy Otto just naturally was just one of those things. I had to have some way to play it. So I had initially meant to convert my first cabinet to Crazy Otto. I didn't know how, but I wanted to. It didn't happen, it was too nice, but I set out to recreate Crazy Otto somehow. So recreating this kind of game, it's not very simple. It's two parts. There's the software, the game, and then the hardware, what you play it in. So I'll talk about these flipping back and forth. So the software was a pain. So I started this when I was 11, back in 2012. I had zero knowledge of code. I don't know. So I had initially paired up with someone else, and we were trying to work together to make a Crazy Otto, some kind of recreation. We didn't get very far. This is what we had come up with. It looks okay. The monsters are too big, and it was still buggy. He couldn't walk properly. So I ended up just taking the project into my own hands. So Steve gave a presentation in 2012. So, hey, I can get the resources I need. I missed it. The reason? That morning, my dad had forgotten to take a shower and we were late.
Yeah, Dad.
But still, he still had the cabinet there with the game, with the board. So that was the perfect source. We were able to take video and slow it down frame by frame by frame by frame. I had to copy, just starting out in Photoshop, just starting pixels one by one by one, and I finally managed to get the AtariAge graphics editors are working. So I came up, I just kept hacking and hacking away, trying to get beneath this code and get it to look like Crazy Otto. So this was an early version from early 2013. It was buggy, it didn't look right. But regardless, this is what I come up with. At this point, I didn't know that there were 3 versions of Crazy Otto because Steve Golson only had that one cabinet on display, so I was still trying to figure out how to get the Pac-Man tracker with him. Hadn't colored the Gen Comp logo yet. So it kind of looks okay. It kind of shuffles around, goes up and down. This is from mid-2013. But then, it goes down. Yeah, that doesn't look healthy. So, Crazy Otto is more than a sprite swap of Ms. Pac-Man. I'll say that. I kind of hit a wall. So the main problem was, so Ms. Pac-Man had 3 frames for animation. It had mouth closed, half open, all the way. And that's all it needed, because it was just mouth. But Crazy Otto had legs, and he had to walk. And he had 4 frames of animation for each up, down, and the sides. So in Ms. Pac-Man, left and right was fine. I was able to get the Crazy Otto graphics in there. It didn't quite look right. It was skipping a little bit because I had to leave out one of the frames, but up and down, I gotta have up working or down working. Because to save space, I'm assuming, or just to get the game to look right, without flipping things around and making a mess, they what General Computer had done was they reused some of the sprites for up and down, just rotated 180 degrees. Because with Ms. Pac-Man, she looks the same no matter what direction she's going. So I took a break at this point. I didn't know what to do, so I decided to focus on the cabinet. So this was the cabinet. Look familiar? So it was $350. It's just a Pac-Man mini. So it looks okay. But we didn't know this until we got home. But it had been in a flood. So the bottom was moldy. It was crumbling. Honestly, if you wanted to punch a hole, and you could literally just punch a hole through the bottom. It was that bad. So thankfully, our neighbor is a master woodworker, and I take no credit for the woodwork. He was able to recreate an entire replica exact base for the cabinet, which is what's on here. It's structurally solid now. So to the art. This was my first design of the Crazy Otto marquee. I didn't know design yet. I was still 11. This was early 2012 too. I'm embarrassed. I kept editing the design, making it a little bit better. I gave him a pupil, I don't know. And it got a little better, tried some disgusting color schemes, and then finally settled on this. And then the CPO. Just evolved and, I don't know, tried some different themes, and then got to that. And so in all of my spare time, like I would be at rehearsals for theater. I'd just be waiting for my turn to go on stage. Hey, why not sketch Crazy Otto? I know these are really poor, but I ended up utilizing them in the final. I'll get to that. So you're probably wondering, oh, and the bezel too. So you're probably wondering, why doesn't that look familiar? Well, I actually finished the cabinet twice. The first time, I didn't put anything on cloth. I painted it blue. I didn't know what I was doing, honestly. I finished it in mid-2014. I painted dark blue. I put on this alternate art set, orange team molding. I don't know. I was having fun, maybe something that looked wacky. But then once I finished it, the game still didn't work properly at this point. He still flipped. But I stood back. That doesn't look right. That doesn't look like what Crazy Otto would have looked like if it had come from the factory. Why did I paint it blue? I don't know. Want an excuse to go to Home Depot? So, back to 2012. I always have been trying to come up with ideas of what Otto could have looked like, but he could have looked like in the Ms. Pac-Man style. So I made this early 2012. I didn't know how to draw yet. His foot's backwards, I'll say that. That's not a pimple, that's a nose. And then the monster too. I forgot to give him arms at that point. And ironically, I was able to use the Pokemon Venonat as a reference. Similar, it's got the eyes, the antenna, and the feet. But I kept it going from there, and evolving Otto. You get a little better each time. So this is from mid-2013. And then finally, the final, which is what I ended up utilizing. And then the monster evolved to trying just different things. And finally, the final design. So the control panel overlay and the other art, it was fairly simple. I was able to just I already had this art vector. And essentially, for this project, I tried to make the Ottos look like the Ms. Pac-Mans. See how the one on the bottom left is kind of chunky, the one on the top is kind of and this one's running. So I tried to mimic that as much as possible, making it as if it were by the same artist. So I had the artwork, but the game still didn't work right. It still had that flipping problem. So thankfully, I was able to find some code online, and I was able to that patched the animation, the animation cycle, because I don't know, the flipping, it was ridiculous. It was complicated. But I was able to find a patch online, and I was also able to find some annotated source code that I was able to use to find exactly what did what, and I was able to just go around through the already compiled the binary and just change values one by one by one by one by one, see what did what, and finally found the right bits for everything. So here are some notes that I took. I had to take notes for just what did what. Like I was trying to get the Pac-Man track mode back in, and just such things. So then, finally, the artwork was printed, board was modified, played the proper game, and the cabinet is finished. So Q&A. Everybody come back. Okay. So if anyone has questions for Steve or I, just go ahead.
I would love a copy of your ROMs.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the problem, my standard answer for this is when Namco releases the Pac-Man ROMs, I'll release the Crazy Otto ROMs. And it's a problem. I mean, we still get a check, okay? We're getting paid for this. At least we are. So that's the original Crazy Otto story. Is it's intellectual property that I made my living from, and can't give it away. I can come talk about it, and then people can get inspired and hack up their own version. And I would invite you to do that. So that's the best answer I can give you. We can have a long talk about intellectual property and reverse engineering and what's what, but I'm not even a lawyer that I play on TV. So.
How close is your version to the original?
As close as I could get it. I'm still working on fixing a few little things. There's still some bugs, like Crazy Otto walks a little too fast, but it's almost there.
Yeah, it looks. I've just played it a little bit, and I'd have to go and look at the Otto that I have. It looks really close, but the gameplay, it's basically Ms. Pac-Man, Crazy Otto is all pretty much the same anyway. So
I was trying to be as accurate as I could be. I mean, honestly, I had to change the Act 1 music because there was a slight change in the instruments. Anyone else?
How many changes were made to the Crazy Otto code to make it become this Pac-Man?
oh, question for me.
For you.
Um,
Yeah, so how many changes did you have to make to release this with Pac-Man? Or was it fairly code complete with the music and the mazes and whatnot?
The gameplay was complete. Everything. I mean, it was a production ready game at that point. So we sort of had to do what Brendon just talked about, but the other way in reverse, because we were like, this game is done, and we kept getting these phone calls from Chicago. We want you to change this. Like, geez, guys, come on. So it was tricky changing the animation, the character animation. In a way, we were just putting it back to Pac-Man, except that Pac-Man, the hardware uses the symmetry of the character. It doesn't matter whether Pac-Man is upside down or not. It looks the same. But Ms. Pac-Man is different if it's upside down. And so that, we had some trickiness to deal with to make that work. But essentially all the changes were just, it says Ms. Pac-Man instead of Crazy Otto, and then all the character animation stuff to make the characters move. And then, yeah, a few other changes were made along the way. There was a very last minute bug we found that we had to fix, and so there were some things like that. And I told Brendon, I said, try running your code on a cocktail machine, because that was the last bug we found, is that when you put it in a cocktail machine, it has to flip over, and Ms. Pac-Man was upside down. And so it's like you probably have the same thing. It's really tricky.
I actually did try that this morning.
Did you? Oh,
it worked fine, but the death sequence was upside down.
Yeah, see, I knew. So we had to make that. Yeah, I told him. I said, I know. We had to have that. We had to make that change at the last minute too.
So, but then there are also some smaller things, like in Crazy Otto, you couldn't see or hear the monster's eyes going back to the pen after you eat them. For in Ms. Pac-Man and Pac-Man, you can see the eyes. I'm sure you know. So that just uses whatever color palette is not the body. But the problem is with having the monsters, you can see the little tips of the antenna and the feet walking back. So in Crazy Otto, they didn't have that and the sound, and
Right.
I had to remove those things too.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So that was a change. That was one thing. So Crazy Otto, you did not see the eyes when you chomped the monster. You didn't. we turned off the eyes going back to the pin.
There are a few small changes, like in the music.
Where did you get the original code? Did you take like this Pac-Man original code and modify it for Crazy Otto?
Yes.
And where did you get that original code?
The dumps are out there, plus I own my own machine. I had to work off of the decrypted bootleg versions because obviously the official versions were very copy locked. So I was able to find some decrypted code and work from there. Anyone else?
Well, this was a lot of fun seeing this. Yeah.
Okay, what about the intermissions?
Um,
They made like brand new for Miss Pac-Man?
No, the intermissions for Crazy Otto are exactly the same. The Crazy Otto female character is just red. You took the same character and you picked a different palette. So instead of yellow with blue eyes, it was red with white eyes, I think.
Yeah, that was another thing. Like I had to fix the palette.
And so when we went to Miss Pac-Man, instead of a little teeny Otto that gets delivered by the store, it's now a little teeny Pac-Man. So we had to do all that graphic stuff, but the intermissions themselves were exactly the same. None of it changed. And that actually, we had some disputes with Midway and Namco at one point about who invented what. And the fact that all of that existed before we showed it to them was really critical, because the female character already existed in the game. It wasn't something that Midway came up with. It was just take the female character and make it the main focus of the game. And so when Midway sold Miss Pac-Man pencils and trash cans and T-shirts, we should get a cut of it. So that was critical that we were able to show that it was the same.
Although it was pretty funny in some of the early versions before it fixed the palette, there were two Autos in love.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I have a question for you, Mr. Olson. When
Yes.
and how did you find out that there was a kid by the name of Junior Pac trying to recreate a Crazy Otto?
Not till, because I don't follow any of the forums. I'm out of games, retired. Better to be a has-been than a never was. So not until Ken mentioned it to me, and he invited me to come back this year. He's like, "Hey, there's this kid who's built a Crazy Otto." I was like, "Really?" And so I went and I did a search, and I said, "Oh, well, that's kind of cool." So it wasn't until I got invited to come here. I said, "Yeah, we're going to have Brendon come and give a talk, and you should come too." Okay, you're right.
Just a few weeks ago then?
Yeah. Well, no. It was like
Like a month ago.
no, it was longer than that. It was back in springtime. Springtime is when I found out about it. Yeah. Oh, Jake.
Oh well, lots of questions.
So you mentioned it wasn't the internal company newsletter or JCC, the mascot was Crazy Otto.
Oh, yeah, so Otto, this is amazing. I wish I had a copy of it. I should have brought it. We had, this is my son Jacob, by the way, who for years was the world champion of Crazy Otto because no one else had ever gotten to play it because it was in my basement. We had our general computer, our internal company newsletter was called Urte, Escaping Reality Through Electronics. And the very first Urte, one of our musicians, Patty Bitson, sketched a Crazy Otto as bursting out, and he looked exactly like this.
Which is a total coincidence.
Yes, he had his top hat, and he had his cane, and he's all strutting out, and it was Crazy Otto wows them in Las Vegas because I think we had just come back from CBS, and so when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's really cool.
You see, I hadn't seen his presentation. There was a photo of that Auto in his presentation in 2012, but I only saw his presentation a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
When I had already designed this Auto, from the start I had him with a hat and cane. The bow tie was actually kind of a last-minute decision because I didn't know how to make his head connect to his legs.
Cover him up. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So that's an amazing coincidence there.
Yeah. So we won't mention the rivalry with Evil Otto.
I'm sorry?
From
Oh, Berserk.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, different Otto.
I see you have your hand up.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to know if you guys, just curious if, as far as the decisions that were made, did you guys decide to make the fruit random starting on the 8th board, and did you know about the kill screen?
Yeah, all of the gameplay was our decision,
Okay.
and so the randomness, I mean, that was one of the key things that we saw that was wrong with Pac-Man. Well, wrong in the sense that players were going to be able to play the game for a long period of time.
Right.
And so, because they were completely pattern driven, I mean, there were books of here's the patterns that you can play, and people were playing with their eyes closed and beating Pac-Man. And so we put in the randomness. So the random, and it's truly random because it uses the refresh counter in the Z80 processor when it needs a random number, and there's just absolutely no way to predict it. It shows up in a few places. One is, yeah, when you get to the 7th or 8th screen, the fruit is random instead of being the high point value all the time. That's one. Number two is the path that the fruit takes when it comes into the maze. For each maze, as I recall, there's 4 ways in, there's 4 paths, and so it picks 1 of 4 in and 1 of 4 out. So there's 16 different random things that could happen. That's one. But the biggest one was there's a slight randomness to the monster movement algorithm. There's one of the modes the monster can be in is it heads to its favorite corner. It heads to its home corner, and in Ms. Pac-Man it heads to a random corner. And so that's just enough to mess up the play there. So, yeah.
I'm kind of surprised to hear that you actually base it on a CPU.
Well, that's what Pac-Man is.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so Pac-Man is Z80, and so the whole point was we were designing this as a kit that you would sell to go into an existing Pac-Man game and sell it to an arcade owner, and they would plug it in, and it would make it a new game. Oh, you had a question about the kill screen. I'll get back to that. Yeah.
One other question. What platform did you use for the coding?
We used a Tektronix 8550 microprocessor emulator system. So you plugged in basically a computer that pretended to be a microprocessor. And so we could do all of our coding, assembly, breakpoints, and do all of that. So it's quite a sophisticated system for that. So you asked a question about the kill screens, and no, we had no idea about the kill screens. And people say, oh, if you knew about that bug, would you have fixed it? And I say, the bug is that you played the game for 5 hours. That's the bug. Okay, as a designer, I want you to put another quarter in after 10 minutes, right?
The game plays you.
Yeah, so if you've played it up to that, it's like, I don't care. I don't care what happens up to that. The bug is that the game's not hard enough. The game's not preventing you from playing for 5 hours at a shot. So that's the bug I would have fixed. Yes. Oh.
So this is a beautiful cabinet project.
Thank you.
Have you started thinking about what your next project will be?
You know what? Right now, I'm just working. Well, right now I'm just working on my collection. For example, at the moment I'm working on a Pac-Man cabinet, restoring it to new, giving it some custom red artwork. Blue is Pac-Man, yellow is Pac-Man. Hey, red is Pac-Man. Okay, a couple more.
Is this going to be available to play on the floor?
Yes, it has been and it will be.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. People are out there playing it. It's a lot of fun. So.
Jacob?
Just mention why there's a pretzel.
Oh yeah, why is there a pretzel? No one's asked. So, so does anybody know why Pac-Man has the fruit bonuses that it has? They are slot machine fruits. Okay, they are the slot machine characters. You go to the slot machine, you'll see the same ones. So we had learned from our Atari lawsuit, trademark infringement and whatnot, and we're being very careful. And so we did not want to use the same characters from Pac-Man. And so anything that was identifiable, we wanted to change. So the cherry, that's okay. The strawberry, that's okay. The grapes, nobody knew what the heck it was, so we got rid of the grapes. It's grapes is what it's supposed to be. The Galaxian Well, we can't use that, so boom, so we tossed that. And so, and the same thing with the bell, and that didn't quite fit. So we ended up with the fruit. And so we put in a pear, and we put in a banana. And we put in a pretzel for Kevin Curran, because Kevin really likes pretzels. And so we put that in. And also, you're very limited by the palettes that you could choose from. So we were like, what fruit uses those colors? And so we decided on the pretzel. So that's Kevin's pretzel. It's in there.
All righty. Everybody put your hands together.
So yeah, go play. Go play. It's fun.
All right, we got about 5 minutes. We got to switch over a bunch of stuff.